a coyote, apologies. And it's thank you all so much for being here today. I want to first say thank you for just overwhelming me with Stitch. When we planned this event, it was because last year we had been virtual, and we had about half as many of you. And I kind of thought we'd have fewer by saying you are not deterred. You clearly are seeking this connection and this opportunity to celebrate. So please give yourselves all a moment of appreciation for making it here today and for investing in yourselves and our nonprofit community of amazing women. So thank you. We have an incredible lineup, and I feel like I'm the obstacle in the way, but there are some important moments and people I want to recognize. So first, some thank yous. I want to say thank you to our amazing venue, Gems of the Arts. I feel like there is something magical about this space. It just creates this incredible, vibrant, welcoming feeling that has already invigorated our event with new energy and excitement. So thank you for the venue. I also want to give you some housekeeping bits about the venue because there are a bunch of us. We're all going to stay put, but in the case of an emergency, there is an exit there, there's an exit there. There is an exit behind this stage, so I want to make sure people know that. Okay, I did. Also, there are restrooms, right, marked restrooms really clearly. I hope you've oriented yourself to our little snippy snacks, our little treats. Please take good care of yourself throughout the session. So if that means you have another meeting, it's okay, we all understand. If that means you need to stand up and stretch your legs or get some more nourishment, please do the things that help you take good care of you. That is like the top message of the day. I also want to thank the people that make this event possible. So we have an incredible, amazing group of sponsors, individuals who help make all of our programming possible. Today I'd like to highlight the team from Main Street Bank. Main Street Bank is our lead sponsor and has helped make sure that this event is possible, that this event is accessible, and that we're able to bring you all together. So Main Street Bank friends, I see. We have their literature at the check-in table, and I would be really happy to connect you if you're looking to learn more about the amazing ways that they support the nonprofit community, or if you're looking for a new nonprofit banking or personal banking partner. Please let me know and I can connect you after the event. I'm also so grateful to have ASL interpretation today. I think we are so grateful for the Learning Center for the Deaf and the partner that they are and how they help us make our events more accessible and welcoming. There are also a lot of people that make a lot of magic. So huge appreciation to our Metro West Nonprofit Network team, Patricia Leary, our new Associate Director, and our amazing board. So I'm scanning looking for one board member. Kate Baker, would you mind taking the mic to share a little bit more about the Metro West Nonprofit Network?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Baker, and I'm here today as the board chair of MWNN. If you were an obstacle to the panelists, then I'm like another speed bump. So I'll be quick because I know that we have some really great voices and experience in the room that I want you all to hear and benefit from. Again, welcome and thank you. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to all of you for being here. For just really quick, can we have some of the board members raise their hands? Yeah, So I'd like to invite everyone else to stay engaged with us. Hopefully you just saw the folks that raised their hands. Feel free to talk with them about the programming. Also check out our website, and Leah has set up a QR code back there to fill out a survey to help us plan more great programming for you guys. So whether you're making a contribution, coming to our events like this, or just connecting with all of us in general, we're happy to have you.
One housekeeping bit I realized I forgot is someone has a Honda, maybe with a license plate that ends with 95?
94.
94, and an alarm is going off. So if that sounds like you, with apologies and no judgment, thank you for everyone who managed to Getting there is half the battle. Look at me, I'm gonna tap dance with a segue. Getting there is half the battle, and you all got here today, but what I really want to celebrate is the journey of our panelists. I'm going to allow our panelists to share a little bit on their own because you don't need me to tell you how wonderful they are. It will be very clear in just a few moments. If you're not convinced, please find me at the end and I'll share more information. I do want to just pause though and purposefully say how excited I am to have this panel. Regina, Tiffany, Marie, and Susan are all individuals that I look up to and I trust and I frequently refer other people to. They show up in so many different ways and have done so for decades, giving their time, giving their expertise, and sharing their wisdom in a way that takes their impact and just multiplies it. And this is a day where we get to multiply impact. So you're going to take the inspiration, I hope, this is the note, and you're going to carry it forward. So please keep connecting with each other. Please take lessons from our wonderful panel. There are many to share, and there's a lot of richness and strength in this room. I want to give a quick special shout out to our amazing moderator, Susan Nickel. So I cannot say enough, and I won't say everything I'd like to, but she is someone who has truly been a beacon for me. Her work is just woven through everything we do at the Metro West Nonprofit Network. And that's just one organization that she touched, invested in, and put her energy and her strength to help make sure that other people succeed. So I do want to give a special round of applause for Susan. I will not say more, but I'm thinking it. I hope you all feel it. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Susan's really capable hands, and I'm going to welcome our panel up here for what I hope will be a really encouraging conversation, and I look forward to everything that they'll share. Thank you so much. That's it.
Do we think this is on? No.
Yes.
Listen, I got up the 2 stairs. That was something I was worried about. Thank you so much for that, Leah. I'm looking out of this room, and I'm going to sound like an old grandma right now, but there are people in this room I knew 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 year ago, and I think that's really the testament to you all that the nonprofit sector of Metro West is so mutually supportive that it just keeps drawing more people. I mean, this is a huge room full of people. And it's so exciting for me to see a lot of people I don't know. Again, this is gonna sound like a little lady, but like 15 years ago or so, any nonprofit forum you went to in Massachusetts, everybody was talking about the retirement plan. All the leaders are gonna retire. There's gonna be a big vacuum. What are we gonna do? Well, clearly, that was not a problem. I think the way that new people were attracted to the sector, encouraged the leadership roles, and brought such interesting new perspective. And it's just made the sector really thrive. And that is my segue into our panelists, because you're all relatively new CEOs or about to be a new CEO, and these are the sort of people that 15 years ago people were saying, well, who's gonna replace this amazing person or that amazing person? These people are, and plenty of you out there. So the good news is that's it for me right now. I'm going to then have the panelists introduce themselves, and we have a question for you, and I know you're all kind of like to reword questions, so you interpret it as however you want, but as you say your name and your role, would you share a brief story about a woman who helped you in your journey and how you were paying that forward, or not, however you want to interpret that question. So, I don't tip you like a million miles away, but we'll just start here and move down, and we'll start with Regina.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Regina Marshall, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Advocates currently. And in July, I will be the Chief Executive Officer at Advocates. Thank you. I don't usually say that when I introduce myself, and someone with me will be like, you gotta say the other part. And so, yes, it's a little funny. Very excited about that opportunity. I've been in Advocates for for about 10 years, and I'm replacing our amazing CEO who's been there, Diane Gold, for 41 years. So it's quite an honor to step into that role. And so to tell you a little bit about a woman who impacted my life, it's funny, when this question was posed, I immediately thought of this moment. And so I started my career off as a lawyer, and I worked in the disability area. So I worked at the Disability Law Center, and we would go work with the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Developmental Services, to ensure that people were getting the services they needed. So I was fresh out of law school, and I got to meet with the commissioner, Barbara Lee Home. She was new in her role, and she had a lot of really great ideas. And during this meeting, I pushed her and I said, do you really think you're going to be able to do this? My colleagues were like, she's the commissioner. And I was like, well, we don't work for her. We're here to challenge her and do what she needs to do. And then about 2 weeks later, she called and offered me the opportunity to be her chief of staff. So I got to be the chief of staff for the Department of Mental Health, about 30 years old. And that was an unbelievable experience that completely changed the trajectory of my career. And I remember, I'll just say, for those of you who may be lawyers in the room, when you go to law school, they tell you how smart, how great you are. And when you're young, you just believe it, right? So I was, at that point in my life where I'm like, I'm fabulous, so of course I'm And then as I got into the job and realized that I was supervising people who had been working there longer than I had been alive, like literally, it's like I've been here for 36 years, and I'm like, yeah, 30 years old. So I started to really quickly realize that this was a huge job, this was an amazing honor, and she really used me as her second in command. I made a ton of mistakes that I've learned from that shaped the leader that I am today, but it was an amazing opportunity. And I did ask her, I said, like, why me? And she said, I wanted someone who would push me. I wanted someone who would challenge me. And when I met you, you weren't afraid to ask me tough questions and to push me. And I said, but like, where I met in my career, because there were people at DMH who were kind of like, yeah, she's gonna last 10 minutes. I was there for 6 years. And she said, I just saw something in you and I wanted to nurture and develop that. She took a lot of negative feedback for bringing in this young woman of color into a role where you had state employees who were kind of waiting for that opportunity. And she just kind of plucked me and stuck me in there. And so I am forever grateful to her for that. We still stay in touch. And she supported me. The other thing she did that I think is important when you're doing something like this is she brought back one of her really close friends who was an amazing leader and had her be my coach. And so she was the one person that I could go to. So it wasn't like I was going to my boss and say like, I don't know how to do this. Or I really just pissed this person off. Like, what am I supposed to do now? And I learned so much. She also was someone who knew all the players. She understood state government. So she really helped me navigate those first couple of years while I found my way. So I'm forever grateful to Barbara Lee Home. And I think my kind of takeaways from that experience is seeing the potential in someone and helping them kind of like harness that and ensuring you're giving them the supports to be successful. Because just because you see it doesn't mean everybody else there is. And I was in plenty of meetings without her where people were challenging me and I had to kind of stand on my own 2 feet. But I was so grateful that again, she gave me the supports to help me push through that, and it's how I got to where I am today. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Marie Beam. I'm very proud to serve as CEO at the Discovery Museum up in Acton. A very happy place in these times that we all need a little bit more of. My career trajectory has been, I've not had sort of a pivot like you, Regina, from one sort of chosen career into another one. The woman that I'd like to talk about was somebody who didn't take a gamble on me based on a sense that I had a lot of potential or based on proven accomplishment. It's Martha Reynolds. I was a student at Simmons College, and I needed a work-study job my freshman year. My family could not afford my education, and I was loaded up with with loans, and I went to the student employment office and found this job at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in an office called Development, which I thought was maybe like construction. And I went over and got this part-time job, initially working for a man that I will not say a lot about, and then he moved on, and Martha took his position as Director of Corporate and Foundation Relations. There was no reason Martha would have had to imagine that I was somebody who could ultimately be good at development work and make a career of it. I had no idea that that was a career for people. Had no sense that I wanted to work in nonprofit. But Martha, from the get-go, gave me opportunities and projects and let me try things and fail, encouraged me to work with others around the museum in different departments. I got to work with the curator and the program folks and the director of the museum, who also let me walk her dog on days when she was busy and he was visiting. So I did all kinds of things, glamorous and not glamorous, but what Martha communicated to me in her very quiet and supportive way was that I could make my way in a business and an environment that was new to me, and that I could make my way in an adult world of getting things done, even though at that time I was only 17, 18 years old. She kept me working there as a work-study student all 4 years of college, which was a huge help. She hired me full-time 2 summers to do more advanced work with her. And when I graduated with a degree in economics and English, and I thought maybe I wanted to be a teacher, and thank the Lord nobody hired me for one of those jobs. You know, this sort of development career emerged in my mind, and I had the confidence to go for it. So that was 1995 when I graduated, and I was a development professional up until 2 years ago when I, after 10 years as Chief Development Officer at Discovery Museum, when I was elevated to be CEO. So thanks, Martha, for taking a gamble on me all those years ago. And by the way, I try to pay this back. I'm still involved in my alma mater, specifically in my alum department of economics. Every year I go back, I meet with economics students, I try to mentor them, I talk to them about how to apply what they've learned in the nonprofit industry, because I think we need more smart, capable, empowered, confident, and dare I say, female minds in this industry to help advance this incredibly important work. And we've had an intern at the Discovery Museum, and I just try to get to these young people when they're at the very beginning and don't quite yet know what they want to do, is a moment that we can all help with.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Tiffany Lilly, and I am currently the CEO of Girls Inc. of Worcester, and we provide programs, woohoo, that's right. And we provide programs for participants 5 through college in Central Mass and Metro West. And I have been very fortunate to be there for a little over 2 years now, which is crazy to say to me, or to myself. My mentor, I feel like I've had honestly the true love and pleasure of having several mentors throughout my life, and including family and many people, and one person that definitely sticks out to me is Judy Kirk, and she definitely took a chance on me when I feel like I shouldn't have heard your stories first, because now I feel like a little emotional. But she definitely took a chance on me when I don't think many would have, and I was probably 19 years old and had no business leading people. And I actually started Girls Inc. was my first job, and so I worked at Girls Inc. And I remember they had me doing all the things. So it was if you've ever done youth work, you're running the desk, you're then going to do programs, you're serving snack. And I remember she came to a visit and she was like, "What are you doing here? How old are you?" And I was like, "I just turned 18, I have a key now." Because you can't have a key if you're not 18. And she was like, "You should come work at the YW." And she was working at the YWCA, and So she hired me there as a youth development coordinator. And ever since then, I think that she just really started pouring into me in ways that I don't think I fully appreciated then, because I'll be very honest, and I tell her this now, because she's still a mentor of mine. I thought she was a total mean boss. She was hard. She was very strict. I remember once I was in a car accident and I was like, I don't think I can come into work today. She's like, well, who's gonna be with the kids? I was like, you're right, I'll be there. So there was just so many things that she definitely held a very high standard, some which I would not replicate, but most that I would, genuinely. But I think the reason why I definitely see her as a mentor is because she not only created space and opportunity at leadership tables within the organization, but even across the city. We have a Youth Connect organization, that's all the other youth serving organizations. And she would make it a point to be like, well, can Tiffany attend? And again, like, I had really not a lot of business being at those tables at that time. And I think also she was the first person for me to truly model what like unconditional community love meant. It really was like no ego. She wasn't in it she still isn't. It is just true community love, like how do we genuinely move the community forward? And I feel like a lot of times in leadership it's so hard because as I've seen people grow in leadership, sometimes that can become very commingled with ego and it's like the X person's show. And I never felt that and saw that with her. And I always saw the work come first. And I feel like that I learned the most. So yes, I learned technical skills and she created a lot of opportunity, but I think she genuinely always modeled what it means to care for your community holistically. And to this day, she's still a mentor and cares and checks in. And so I always pay that forward in any way. Like anyone that reaches out, I try, I hope people would say this, I don't know, but I hope it would be about like obviously the programming that we do for our participants, but I believe in like mentor moments. So even though she's been a lifelong mentor with individuals, like whatever anyone needs, because I think that we need more of that. Like we're all busy and I like always am hopeful that like if someone has always taken 5 minutes or 10 minutes to be like, hey, let me send you this document, or hey, let me take this quick call, or whatever that is. And I feel like if we all did more of that, we would genuinely have a stronger community that would be more whole for everyone. And so I genuinely think I learned so much of that from her and from so many others that have like nourished me along the way.
There's obviously so many themes and so many differences, but one thing that you all kind of said, and I wonder how many people in the audience, if we did a show of hands, which we don't need to, how many of us had jobs, especially early on, that we had no business doing? I mean, and they're just like, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm just gonna make it work. And I think sometimes we might have felt a little bit lonely in that. I'm glad to hear that you had people who made it less lonely, but I know it's probably triggering for everybody in the audience. Like the times when you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I can't let anybody know. So anyway, oh yeah, well,
Yeah, right, you still
never go
do.
anywhere. That's true, that's true. But Tiffany, you mentioned a couple of things, which were a great segue. I was gonna ask you your question first, if you just kind of segued into that. I will say now we're in a section where we're gonna take about 20 minutes to ask each of you 2 questions, and we have more questions just in case. But the first question that was teed up was actually for Tiff. How has your leadership style evolved over time? And you started to talk about leadership style a little bit, so continue.
I think my leadership style has changed. I mean, it changes, I feel like daily. I think that it's very responsive to what the current team needs. And honestly, I don't like that. I'll be very honest, it's kind of annoying. But I think it is, like, the job of a leader is to get your team to do their best work. And I feel like what's easier for me is to not do that, but I think that that's very selfish. And so I feel like it is harder to do the thing where you're like constantly adapting to what your team needs. But I do think that, and again, our team has like very honest conversations about this. So it is very challenging when there's like missed deadlines or when, things are not done in a certain way, because I am a very, like, I worked in education for 10 years before this, so there's a template for everything. There's a workflow for everything. There is, everything is very meticulous. And so coming from that type of rigidity to going into a structure where there was none of that is very hard. Because then I'm the person where they're like, well, what do you think? And it is me. I'm like, well, I would like to have a template for everything. But we have a bunch of creatives that are like, what if? So I do think that that's like how it's evolved, and that there's a lot of humility in leadership. And I was just saying to Regina, like, I was so wrong in so many things when I accepted the position. It's been like, I had a leader once say to me, leadership is like eating humble pie for breakfast every day. And I joke that I'm like on the humble pie diet, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day long. Like, I'm comfortable being wrong, I'm comfortable modeling that I made mistakes, because I think it's important to show our girls that, honestly. And I think I want our team, like I want our supervisors, I want our leadership team, I want our entire staff team to be comfortable adjusting. So I think that it is adapting to what works for them, with also some some standard around like standard work practice. But we do a lot of tools, like we use the DISC assessment, we've done trainings together so that we can still calibrate. But I do think that my style has very much adapted to like each person I supervise, it looks a little different. So with some person, we use like a quadrant model of moving tasks, and someone else, they don't need that. But I do hope that, and I do see that it works best for different styles. Sometimes it's harder, but I also believe that that's equity in order to get to what works best for them.
So Marie, let's keep talking about leadership. What's something you believed about leadership early on that you've unlearned or found to not be the case?
One thing was that I would still have brain cells in my 50s, so I made some notes. I have enough brain cells. I think the biggest thing that I have had to unlearn in my current role is the idea that once you achieve this, that you've got it, right? I mean, once you have the title, that you are done learning and figuring it out. And as you say, Tiffany, right? I mean, every day there's something new, and it is incumbent on us as leaders to adapt. I mean, it is incumbent on us to model and to show that if we want our organizations to be adaptable and nimble, that begins with us. I've been very fortunate to, in just the last couple months, so one of the things that I unlearned was that I don't need help, right? Which I don't need help, nobody can tell me how to do this. And just in the last couple of months, I've been very fortunate to work with a coach who is nice enough to come here today, Richard Brown, and who, and I've learned that having those conversations, which are frankly a little bit in the margin of like therapy and coaching and consulting, we sort of put the different hats on, that's really important. You need somebody to talk to about these experiences, whether you're a CEO or whether you're running a department or whether you're kind of, figuring out what your path might be. And the space and the grace to kind of process how this feels, not just what to do, right? But how it feels and how it affects the rest of your life and your identity and how you kind of carry yourself in the world. You know, a couple of things. I think, you know, I imagined that, you know, this work was kind of about the big moments of decision, those sort of crisis moments where, you know, somebody's got to stand up and take charge. What I am learning is that it really is about cultivating a set of conditions for success, right? That moment will come and will be what it needs to be, and you will be what you need to be in that moment if you have put the time in every day to cultivate in yourself and in your team and in your organization and your sort of work community and frankly your family, your support system, the cultivation, the conditions for success. I am not a quick decision maker. I'm a thinker. I'm the person that when I do a Q&A at an event and I ask a question, I'm immediately like, that was the stupidest question. I should have spent another 2 hours thinking about that. But what I'm coming to understand is that time is an important factor in this, and that rushing does not get you anywhere, but feeling rushed and having to undo a lot of things. So, so give the process of decision making and connecting and engaging and learning about the people you work with the time that deserves. You know, I am a major empath. I really want everybody to get along all the time. That's part of why I work in nonprofit. Let's make the world better. Be so happy. With some not insignificant amount of help from Richard, I'm understanding that it's about discomfort, right? Discomfort within yourself, sitting in those spaces of discomfort in discussions with your team. Sometimes making a call for your organization that takes you out of a safe space, so that you can maybe reach something that is greater. And lastly, you alluded to this, Tiffany, you know, it's not about you. We all would like to think so. It is, you know, I was sort of raised in the, again, if I may gender this just a little bit, in a more sort of typically male model of leadership where, you know, you are the place is you stand up for it, what you say goes. You know, it is not really about you, it's about your values, right? And what you stand for. You know, it's not about the resume. Anybody in this room could do my job, right? It's about the way you kind of carry those values forward and leave an imprint on a place and on the people. And how you choose to grow yourself in this role. So it's been a lot of unlearning. I thought that leadership was kind of a destination. I did a lot of years of being the second person down in the org chart and very comfortable supporting somebody else in being the leader in the way that I thought they would want to be. It's a real journey and it's ongoing. So I'm trying to embrace that every day.
So Gina, these stories and journeys that we've heard, there's been kind of reference to risk, but we haven't really dove into the word risk. So what risks did you take in your career that ultimately helped you grow?
Yeah, so this was another one, and whenever I get opportunities to reflect on my leadership, I always go back to that chief of staff job because, as I said, I did make a lot of mistakes, but it was such a rich training ground. So in that role, I had only been there for maybe 6 months, and there was a man who had worked there for about 35, 36 years. He had had a terrible accident and he was in a car that got hit by a tractor trailer and had a traumatic brain injury. I never knew him before the accident, and I hear that he was amazing. But after the accident, he, you know, rightfully so, had some challenges, but was still in the same role. He wasn't able to do the job. He was struggling. And there were kind of all these different signs. And so there for 6 months, sitting in the room with the commissioner and then someone else who was relevant to his work, and they were like, yeah, we've been wanting to let him go for a while, so we would like for you to let him know that, you know, he is time to go. And again, I am, you know, brand spanking new, but one of the things that, you know, is really core to me is Like I listened to my gut. Earlier on in my legal career, I had a tremendous lawyer who she could turn anything into a lawsuit, but she was incredibly aggressive. So people just saw her coming and were like, whoa. And she would always tell me, like, listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. So it was like one of the first things out of law school, and with my first job I learned. So in this meeting, I still can feel it now, like so many years later. I was hot and I was panicked and I was heating up and I was like, this is just wrong. And so when it was my time to speak, I said, no. I said, I will not do that. I said, I've been here for 6 months. He and I have just started working together. As his supervisor, I don't know if I agree that he shouldn't be in this role. I would like at least the next 4 to 5 months to work with him and make my own determination if he should go. And if I believe he should go at that point, I'm happy to do the process. If you disagree with me, then you need to be the ones to tell him that, because I don't feel comfortable doing it. Talk about sweating. So I say all this because I felt so strong about it. Like I just felt like this isn't right. But that was a huge risk. And I remember Barbara smiled and said, okay. The other person was furious because they just wanted him to go. They gave me the time. He did end up leaving. But it was such an amazing experience for me, because what happened was, probably within the next month, and I had already had a feeling they were probably right, because I saw he would sometimes fall asleep in meetings. He would, his role, I don't want to kind of divulge too much, was such that he really needed to be kind of sharp as a tack around things, and he just couldn't do it. There were moments where he could, and moments where he was making decisions that, again, weren't impacting anyone's, like, no one was going to die as a result, or was going to be safe. But it was a workflow process thing that was just causing more work for other people. And so within about a month, I felt like, okay, this isn't gonna work. And so I just used my own, like, how would I wanna navigate this? So long story short, I started working with him and talking to him about, like, is this working for you? Like, I need you to be able to do this. Can you do this? And he would say, I don't know. And, you know, we went through that for several months, and then finally I went to the commissioner and I said, you know, you're absolutely right. I do think it's time. I'm going to have the conversation with him. So we would go out for lunch, and so I had scheduled a lunch, and we were sitting at the restaurant. And, you know, he would call me kiddo, and given the age difference, I let it go. And so he says, kiddo, it's time for me to go. You don't have to say it. I can't tell you how grateful I am for you to allow me to go. I get emotional when I think about it. To allow me to go on my own terms and in the ways that feel respectful for me for the years that I've given to the department. And so he got to have this glorious retirement party. His wife came and hugged me and told me how much this meant to her. And again, I am maybe 31 years old at this point. I don't even think so. So again, like I relished in what felt good, but as I've aged and grown and kind of had more experiences, I really fully appreciate the impact of that moment and the risk I took of just saying no to my boss. And so I think for me that helped me realize that, like, it's okay sometimes to say no when something's not right. Because I couldn't have, like, gone home and slept that night if I went and fired this man in a way that felt disrespectful. And so taking that risk to do what feels right is sometimes what you need to do. And to be able to successfully do that so early on in my career has enabled me to do it. Sometimes I do it even more than I think I should. But I do. I will hold the line and say, like, this is what I think we should do. And so it's helped me to be able to lead with my values and lead with what's important to me, and not just because, you know, as you were saying, like, I'm a leader so I make the decisions, or this is the right thing to do because I said so, but to really make sure that I'm valuing people and what they bring to the table and thinking about the human aspects and not just what's the right business decision as we move forward, and slowing down and making sure that that's considered in every decision that we make.
Leah, should we do one more question for each before you go to the audience? Okay, all right. So we'll go down to Marie. So we heard about ways that women have supported women, which is obviously huge for all of us. But we know there's ways to go. What do you think needs to change to better support women leaders in the nonprofit sector, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds? This question sounds familiar to you, doesn't it? Okay.
Yes, yes, but I just had it.
We did play this.
We did, but I just had it up. So, with the utmost respect for the men that are in the room today, I think the number one thing is that men need to support women leaders, particularly. We need that solidarity, we need that support, we need the encouragement, and we also need the men on our nonprofit boards and the men in our sort of community leadership positions to recognize that women's leadership looks different. We are not a monolith. We do not all do it the same way. But there are things that we, ways that we see the world, ways that we bring ourselves to our goals, ways that we represent our cultures and our backgrounds and our lived experience that may be different. Maybe not better, but certainly not worse.
No, better.
Thanks, Richard. That's why I've enjoyed working with him so much. Yes, so, and I do think particularly in our nonprofit industry, right? This is there's a way of building community that we bring that has proven itself through the ages. I was gonna make a large scale connection on that, but I'm not gonna go there. I think that those of us who are in positions of privilege, those of us who have, us white women in the audience, us cisgendered women, have an opportunity to help hold doors open for those whose voices are not represented equitably around our tables, and to make space for those voices by sometimes lowering our own in moments when it will matter. And I just think that's supporting each other. I mean, being in this room is so nice, right? Being on this panel is so nice. I've gotten to meet new people. We just have to be there for each other, not just in the I'm here to support you, but in the moments when it gets challenging, to reach out and say, hey, do you need to talk to somebody who's been through this? Or hey, do you need to talk to someone who can help kick this around with you without providing a solution? Like, do we need to sit in the problem together and just be there with each other?
So we're going on to tip. Along the same lines, where do nonprofits unintentionally replicate inequities that they're trying to solve?
Oh boy. Everywhere, I think. I think that I really should have prepped more for this question. I think I have so many feelings. I know. I think that best intentions can be really harmful, and if not like thoughtfully planned and intentionally designed. I think that there's a lot of power, and without the intentional planning of intersectionality, I think that can be very challenging and problematic. And so what I mean by that is, who's not at the decision-making table, but also I think often we think about like, who are we helping versus who is being left out of the impact that we're having, and or who is being potentially harmed by what we're doing. And what are like the ripples that we don't even know about? Because, one of the challenges, not in my current work, but even with like city government, it can happen in a lot of other industries. Like when I worked with the school department, it's tough. We were overseeing 10,000 students, and then the ripples of families, and then we were overseeing community and family engagement. we're looking at an entire neighborhood, and so we're trying to work with community partners that each may work with 200 to 300 families. But we know we're looking at an entire neighborhood that we are trying to support and engage, 3,500 residents. And so we are getting feedback, we're looking at several different outcomes, and so there's so much to consider that, analysis paralysis is a thing around trying to be too thoughtful, I think, but I just think that sometimes we're reactive versus responsive. And so I do think that in the ways that we make decisions, in the ways that even our language or our jargon can sometimes perpetuate harmful disparities, and we don't always just stop to think, where does this language come from? Are we being thoughtful? So even at a girls serving organization, we are still trying to be very intentional. I try to say participants because we do still serve non-binary participants, but even we have several participants with disabilities. And so even how we're thinking about the language that we use, our actual facilities. And so there's that, the ripples of families, how we do financial aid paperwork and that process. And so I could go on all day, I guess, but I think that it's a litany of ways is my short answer after giving you the long answer. But I do think that we have to have more conversations about it because there is a lot of, we are just doing such good work, and I think that it stops there. And I don't think that we often think about how we are perpetuating negative stereotypes and or disparities.
Okay, last question is for Gina. So we talked about early careers, mid-careers. Let's fast forward, and what legacy do you hope your leadership is building? Sorry, I don't mean to be like, here's your hat, what's your hurry?
I haven't even been my full seat yet. When I think about the legacy, one of the other components, and it's interesting that I'm just sharing this, because usually you don't talk to me for more than 5 minutes without knowing. I have a 15-year-old identical twin daughters and a 12-year-old son, and they are my world. And I have them a little bit later in life as I moved through all of these amazing opportunities I've had. And people have always been like, well, when I got the CEO role, people are like, what are you gonna do with your kids? And not in the way, there are some people who know my life is incredibly busy and they're like, how are you gonna do this? That's one thing. But what am I gonna do with them? I don't know, I'll ship them off to another country. What kind of question is that? Let's not get into if I were a man, would you have asked me that? And so one of the things that's been important to me, and it's just been who I am because my children have been so important to me, that throughout my career I have made choices to ensure that they were the center of my life. I show up and I give 150% at work, but if I got a phone call right now that somebody needed me, I would say, it's been lovely being with you all, I'm gonna go and get my child, and they know that. And I've made that choice for me, but one of the things that's happened is that people I've worked with have said, you made me feel safe to say, can you move that meeting to 3 o'clock so that I can go to my kids' game? By the virtue of you sharing how important your family is to you, it's made me feel like it's okay to say, can we just end this meeting 15 minutes earlier? Can I do this other thing? And with technology now, most of us don't work 9 to 5. People go home and they're still working, and so in so many ways, as long as you're accomplishing your tasks, finding that balance to do what's important to you, whether it's children or other things, I think is critically important. And so that's been a big piece of my leadership legacy that was almost an inadvertent consequence because it was just what was important to me. But I've recently, even as I've been trained into the new role, someone was saying to me, I'm just so excited because you always talk about, the kids, and I can talk about my kids, and we can have this space where we can share about our families and share about our lives. And I feel like we spend so much time at work, that you should be able to bring your full self. I feel like as I entered the workforce, as women, and I've had women even in my current role who are like, talk about your kids a little too much. And I'm like, really? Like, because it's like people are gonna think you're not available or that they're more important. And I really believe like we can all stand up and say anything we want. The proof is in the pudding of what you do. And when it matters, I'm there for advocates and I will always be there for advocates. That's not gonna change. And so I feel like I can sit here and I can say this and that, but not until you work with me do you really understand that. But I think it's just so important that people are able to find that right balance for themselves and not feel like they have to hide that they're stressed out because they got a call from the school and they can't focus in a meeting. I want someone to be able to say, can I take 5 minutes? I need to step out. I need to manage, whatever that may be, because that's who we are. And when you have that freedom and that capacity, I feel like you bring your true self. And I have seen teams be able to accomplish and overcome amazing things when we have that trust and that transparency together. So that's a piece of my legacy around my leadership that I want to continue and share. Because there are people who believe like we can't have it all, you can't have your family, you can't have your great job, you can't do these things. And I don't believe that. I think we can do it. It's gonna look different for everybody. And I wanna create a space where we can actually talk about what we need and what it means to be able to do that.
So I have to say this out loud, so yes, same, my sons are 16 and 12. And I think that the example of being a woman in a leadership role, or who's taking leadership in any part of her life, showing that example to your children is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to them also. So in addition to creating an environment as modeling for others, an environment in your workplace, I think it's a huge gift to your children. And so congratulations.
Okay, one super quick question that'll have just a super quick answer, and I have to admit, I stole this question. I hope you are all listening to the Wiser Than Me podcast. So where Julia Louis-Dreyfus interviews women over the age of 70. That's the rule, they have to be over 70, and they talk about kind of their life journey. So at the end, she asks them this super quick question. What do you wish you could go back and tell your 23-year-old self? Quick little observation, little piece of advice.
I'll just say quickly since I have the mic, it's not gonna look like what you think, but it's gonna be great.
It doesn't matter what you wear. Prioritize your sleep.
Yeah. I'm not gonna anybody ask me, but I think I would say, just show up. People are so grateful when you show up. It doesn't even matter what you do, what you show up. So, Leah, you have some questions? All right.
I'm gonna steal the mic. I feel like I have questions that people shared in their registration, and we largely touched on them. You have shown up and shared really critical things. I would love to take 1 or 2 questions if anyone from the audience has one that's occurred to them. Or I can go to my list. Yes, way in the back. If you say it, I'll repeat it.
Okay, I'll try to be loud. So not to kind of bring politics into this. Last year has been incredibly difficult for nonprofits in terms of stability, in terms of funding, and not just the large nonprofits that depend on federal funding, but the smaller nonprofits that depend on contributions, right? Where people are we're not sure what's going on, we're just gonna hold on to our money right now. So in this sort of times, in these times of uncertainty, how do you lead? How do you inspire your teams?
That is such a wonderful question. I'm just gonna repeat it so everybody can hear. Basically, given the swirl and the churn and the uncertainty, how are you leading now and trying to meet the moment? I'm gonna speak slowly and walk slowly so you can formulate your answer.
I'll take a stab at this just because I spend a lot of time thinking about this. So Advocates is a health and human service organization that provides services to people people that they really, I mean, it's housing and services that people really depend on, and some of them are at risk and in jeopardy. And I'm stepping into a major leadership role in the middle of all this. I often joke that Diane's leaving at the perfect time. And so I think about, like, as I see us sitting in meetings and everyone looks stressed, and so I feel like one of the lessons I've learned as a leader is you cannot fix everything, and you feel that weight of like, I gotta find the answer, I gotta make this right. And so I think of being transparent about what the situation is and leading with our values. Helping us remember what's core and what's important, so that as we're faced with some really tough decisions, and we have been recently, that we can feel kind of grounded in we're doing what's needed to be connected to our mission and our core and our values. And everyone at Advocates, as I'm sure in your organizations, is there because of their values. It's there because they care about what we're doing. So as we make these tough decisions, just making sure we're connecting them to our values and our principles, and we're using those as the guiding light. And some of the decisions suck, some of them are awful, like that's real, but at least if you know, it's ensuring that someone's gonna get their housing. It's ensuring that we're able to continue to provide the mental health services that we're providing. That's why we're making this decision, and that's what's guiding us as we go through that, is the only way I think we can lead through this right now, and making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And so one of the things I've been doing is really trying to encourage us to like cancel meetings when we can, so people have time to just think and replenish and take care of themselves, so that when we are sitting having to make a horrible choice between this or that we can find that clarity because we've gotten that rest and can see through it. I will just make a plug for Diane. That's something that I really learned from her. As she's led Advocates, she's always said, like, what are our guiding principles for what we're about to do? What are the values of Advocates that are going to kind of lead us through this? And so I intend to carry that forward in my role as well.
We have definitely come up across this in different ways. As a girls serving organization, there's been several partners that we've lost because we primarily serve girls, and so politically either organizations don't want to only serve girls or don't want to work with an organization that only serves girls due to any political implications. So I think the hard part for me is that they will communicate that with staff, and that can feel demoralizing. So like corporate partners or colleges and institutions that may be afraid of their own federal funding losses. And so we have a lot of like career and technical education. Most of our programs are career development programs. And so I think I separately often think of every analogy is like in highway lanes. So I think for one aspect of it is like holding space for the staff of like just like acknowledging that like this really sucks. Like I think that there is like the staff work very hard to curate these experiences for our participants, where they get to do these like amazing trips and these amazing experiences, and some of these partners we've had for many, many years. And so it stinks like out of nowhere for them to be like, actually, you only serve girls, so now we can't partner with you because we want to work with organizations that do both. And it's challenging because we're 50% of the population. But I think, so that's one big piece, is like just holding space for that reality. And then on the side, I think, or another lane in this highway of mine is like from a business model, I think we are really thinking about all the other things that can relieve pressure from contributions and grants. And so how do we like diversify our business model as well? So thinking of different things that we haven't necessarily thought of before. So like even renting our facility, we've done it before, but we haven't really like marketed it or like branded it. And so I think that we had a separate like subgroup really look at our business model. And then on the other end, I think that there is a responsibility as leaders to try to ensure that the staff do not feel, or the participants, the pressure of the political and financial strain on the organization. So when we are at our team meetings, when we're at our like organizational retreats, we are like very future focused. We are very like, there are always gonna be ebbs and flows in organizations, and we are very innovation focused around where we are going. And as a woman, sometimes you're gonna, especially as a woman of color, you're gonna have to work sometimes 3 times as hard to be seen just as much. So for me especially, it doesn't feel any different than a normal time sometimes, but I think that the only way that I know how to think about it is to separate it out, and so that we can hold space. We need to just be more innovative in our business model, and then also ensuring that what we are sharing with our staff is that this is a very like stable ship, and that we may need to apply for twice as many grants, but we're gonna do it because that's what needs to happen, so that the participants and the families do not feel a loss.
Super briefly, I think that I have a colleague at the museum who says, don't suffer in silence. And I think transparency is the key, right? Transparency with compassion when talking to your colleagues and your staff, transparency with your board, transparency with funders. You know, I think we are expected as nonprofits sometimes to paint a, we can do this kind of view of how we're gonna make everything better through our work. But it's messy right now, and I think that we have an obligation to educate as well as inform, to try to make this whole industry and all the infrastructure that supports this industry work better in difficult times as well as in times when there is abundance for all of us. So, you know, say it.
Thank you so much. I would love to keep having us do questions, but I also want to make sure that we have time for the connecting that happens just organically in the room. So with transparency, I'm going to say, if you still feel like you have a question, that makes me happy. That makes me happy. Ask the question. So even as we wrap up the panel portion, we still have time to keep connecting, and we want to carry it forward. So please turn to someone next to you. Ask one of the panelists, ask me, whatever your question is, because I am very confident that the answers are in this room. So please carry those answers forward. Thank you so much to our panelists. They have all been amazing. To our wonderful moderator, can we give them a round of applause? Thank you to everyone who showed up, everyone who navigated parking, everyone who made it fit into their day. I am grateful to each and every one of you, to our sponsors, to our venue, to our interpreters, to our team. There are so many people that make the magic happen, and you are all one of those people. I also want to encourage you to please keep connecting with us at the Metro West Nonprofit Network. We're going to get a slideshow running in a bit. It's going to have QR codes, but really all you need to know is ask. Ask us. Do you want more programs? Tell us. Would you like to be part of our certificate in nonprofit management program? Yes, it would. Just reach out, come to a lunch and learn, give me a call, drop us an email, and keep connecting. But most of all, thank you again and have a wonderful day.